The representative of the CRC committee, Mr. Jorge Cardona.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Well, it's been a very intense day. We've heard about a lot of proposals and contributions, and I would like to just provide a summary from the perspective of the CRC in 3 ideas. The first of those ideas is the requirement we have to raise understanding of exactly what an inclusive education means. It's the right to an inclusive education. That's what we need to put the emphasis on, the right to such an education. States have an obligation to drive through a paradigm shift, to have a revolution in their education system, because we need to change from a system which tries to make all children the same to a system that recognizes that all systems are different, and the system needs to adapt itself to that change. This is a very difficult change to put across. I like to recall a period of committee sessions of the CRC a few years ago, one of the first period of sessions that I was a member of. We had a dialogue with Liberia. Liberia was emerging from its civil war and the country was destroyed. The head of delegation was the Minister of Education. And when the minister began to describe the situation on the ground, we were on the verge of tears. The minister was on the verge of tears. When they were speaking about sanitation, for example, and health, they said they had no hospital in the country that was functioning. Education. We don't have any school that remains standing, they said. And I don't recall the figures, but I think they had around 148 teachers left in the entire country. Now, faced with that situation, they tried to tell us what they were thinking of doing in order to guarantee rights on the basis of the reality they were confronting, but within the international framework. And when I heard the minister speak, I had the thought, do I ask the minister about inclusive education, or is the minister going to think I'm completely crazy to do so? And I said to myself, well, why not? If I ask every state about the right to inclusive education, why shouldn't I ask the minister? And I put the question, and the minister's answer was spectacular. The minister said, you've put your finger on one of the key elements of our policy. We can not accept any school being constructed in our country that does not have universal design. We're going to create an educational system which is a system that's based on inclusive education, because we can't leave anyone behind, anyone outside of the education system, and as a result we're going to adapt ourselves to the whole range of diversity that we have in a country where the number of children with disabilities is proportionally far greater than in other countries. We're emerging from a civil war, and there's a huge number of children who have been affected by the war and have disabilities as a result. It was an incredibly enriching debate regarding exactly how to design a universal integrated education system in a country emerging from a civil war that's inclusive. On the following day, we had a dialogue with a Western European country from the EU. I won't mention the name of the country. When we spoke about inclusive education, they provided a closed answer. They closed their mind to it. They said, no, we can't possibly do that. We can't have an inclusive system. We have a parallel system, and we have several children that can't be integrated. And I thought to myself, why shouldn't we put the minister from Liberia into this country, put them in touch with this country, because that person has all of the answers at their fingertips. And what we need to do, and this is the heart of the matter, is understand what's meant by the right to inclusive education. That's the nub of the issue. The second idea I wanted to contribute is that we have a great deal of hope within the CRC. We are drafting a general observation on public expenditure under Article 4 of the CRC, which is very similar to Article 4 of the CRPD, public expenditure. And we've carried out a lot of consultation with state, civil society and children. We've carried out a global consultation with children. And the children's answer is very arresting. When we asked what the priorities in public expenditure in terms of the rights of the child should be, in all of the continents, there is a common response: health, education, and particular attention to children with disabilities. Children are aware of the fact that children with disabilities are experiencing discrimination, and they are demanding that they be included. And so we have a very good signal from children themselves. The third idea: in order to achieve this, it is vital to have support from the entire human rights protection system. Quite sincerely, I don't think it's acceptable that persons with disabilities are only represented by one committee within the United Nations framework. There's no sense in the fact that in CEDAW, in the CRC, in the Migrant Workers Committee, in the Committee on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights and the Human Rights Committee, there is no one present who has a disability. And so as a result, they're not lobbying for the disability perspective in order to ensure that things like inclusive education are integrated into their dialogue. And so in that vein, the United Nations has to learn itself to assimilate and incorporate this issue in order to make a real difference and understand the difference that we need to make, because it has to be cross-cutting and all committees have to fight for the inclusion of this issue. My colleague Ms. Bailey said we have to have a gender perspective, we have to have a disability perspective across the system as well. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much.